Hello, everybody. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas. I got a video today I think you're going to find real interesting. And got up and I was going through all my comments on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook, and I saw some on YouTube. Many times I make videos based on what's going on Facebook, but also when I see comments on YouTube, lots of times I put them from YouTube over to Facebook. And I do what's called here YouTube comment of the day. Okay, and so this is today's Facebook post, and it's the YouTube comment of the day. I'm gonna get into it, and that'll lead into the meat and potatoes of this story, which is going to be about the 4 murders at this home. Okay, I said, and I wrote, this comment was made under the video called "Show Me the Proof." Okay, and it's a reference to comments that Midland business owner Aaron Packelhofer made on my Facebook. He said, "But if I can ask, there were 4 people who were murdered, died in your house. What are their names?" I made the point that Aaron knew the exact number of people who had been murdered, died in my home, so obviously he knows their names, right? He didn't say 3, he didn't just say 6, he didn't say 8, right? Okay, so then here, this is the comment that I saw this morning from this guy named Kam Tube. This is on YouTube. 7 hours ago, he wrote, "I think the reason the guy asked the 4 names is because you said how many lived in the house in prior videos. Also, Freemasonry has nothing to do with murder that I'm aware of. I'm a master Mason, so are people in my family. We are Christian Southern folk that stay to ourselves. I'm sure there's something funny going on, but wrongfully defaming people or groups is wrong. My lodge donates to St. Jude Shriners Burn Hospital, not running child rape rings or murder." Okay, and I want to make a point. I don't care how much money you donate. You rape a child, I'm gonna hold you accountable, and I think most other people are. You can't excuse raping and murdering children because you did a good deed. Good deeds do not excuse crimes such as murder. I just want to make that clear. Anyway, I'm not saying he did, but I just want to make that point. And he was exalting himself. And so, buddy, here I replied, I said, your logic doesn't make any sense. The last 4 people that own my home are not dead, and I know their names. Aaron asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people who had been murdered, died in my home, not who had lived in my home. Obviously, he knows, or he wouldn't have asked, right? A former neighbor, Marilyn Dlugi, told me twice that Mike Lawhon died here. He's the young previous owner. He's the young previous owner of my home that died the week before the 2008 oil show started. And she also told me that somebody else died here before him. I wondered if that was the still missing man, Rene Escobar Sanchez. He was reported missing 3 months before Mike died, and I found some evidence which made me suspect that he may be one of the 4 that Aaron talked about. I also wondered if Aaron was counting the young girl that was murdered at the underground oil show party in 2010, which Angie told me about. It looks like one of the 4 underground homes is in my backyard based on Google Maps. The remains of a young girl was found outside of Midland in 2013. That would be 3, but I don't know who the 4th one is. It's easy to see they planned on me being the 5th murder, right? Or death. And these are very dangerous criminals suspected of multiple murders, and nobody was saying that you were a serial killer. I believe there was some reason that Lisa mentioned the Masons in Midland. Do you know each one of them personally? And can you provide an alibi for them on the night of these violent crimes? And I'm going to show you what the reference is. This is the screenshot from several years ago, and here's this Aaron Packelhofer. I didn't know him, but I think he has a business partner, Lisa Frisk, and at the time she was one of my Facebook friends. I don't know her either. And that's where he asked me. He says, "Can I ask? There were 4 people who were murdered, died in your home. What are their names?" Okay, obviously he knows their names. He knows exactly how many people it is. I've made that point. I've sent that to law enforcement, before, because I think somebody needs to talk to Aaron Packelhofer. You said there were 4 people died in Buddy's home. Who are they? How do you know that? Why did you say 4? Why didn't you say 2? Etc. Okay. And the point, this other guy, it was like he was excuse making, is what it sounded like to me. And not only was excuse making, it was a weak excuse. Oh, he said there was 4 people murdered, died in your home because you had previously mentioned there was 4 people that used to own your house. And I'm going, no, that don't make any sense. The past owners of my home are not dead, and and that has, they don't go together. It makes no sense whatsoever. What you're saying, you're trying to make an excuse. Obviously this guy knows. But anyway, so Lisa, she goes on and she's going, she's telling Aaron, I know you're a Mason. Buddy, Buddy wants to talk to the Mason groups, and that wasn't true. She made that up, and I'd never said anything about that, And Aaron, he gets offended. I make no secret about being a Mason. Masons are not some secret tinfoil hat group, and so anyways, the conversation is between them. And then Aaron comes back and says, what we discussed within the lodge is only the business of other Masons, and which is fine unless you're talking about the rape and murder of children or multiple capital murders. Underground homes where also parties are going on, where multiple murders going on. And then I wouldn't keep that secret because that's a crime. Okay, so anyways, that was the point here, and somehow this guy, Kam Tube, he thought maybe that, all Masons were killers or something, and I'm like, no, that's not what it's saying, and unless you, can, go ahead and verify, location of every Mason in Midland, and you know him personally. I don't know how you can say that. It's too large of an organization to say every Mason in the world has never committed a crime. That's bull crap. And but so, anyways, I'm gonna talk about each of these four that I suspect. Okay, and. Or the ones that I know about. Okay, starting with Mike Lawhon, previous young owner of my home. Okay, I just did a Google here. You can do it. Google Mike Lawhon, Midland, Texas. Okay, and here's an obituary, William Lawhon, 2008, and Midland Reporter Telegram. But what I want to call your attention to is right here. This is what I noticed. It was confusing to me for a long time because I saw one death notice and then I saw another death notice, and it just took me a while to figure out what was going on. But now I do understand it. There was 2 death notices posted for Mike Lawhon, okay? Both by the Odessa American, OAOA.com. And the first one here, William Michael Don Lawhon, Odessa American death notice, posted on the 14th. The second one was posted on the 18th, 4 days later. So let's look at the first one on October 14th. Okay, and here's Mike Lawhon. He died in Fort Worth. Do you see that? Where it says he died on October 12th, 2008, Fort Worth. Okay, and at that time here, I was transferred to Midland. My first night to sleep at this home was like the end of that month, right after Mike died. Okay, but then 4 days later, the Odessa American posted a second death notice, and they changed. Notice this. This is real interesting. This is live on the internet right now. They changed the location of death to say he died at his residence, and that was posted 4 days later. Well, that wasn't an accident. The computer didn't go, oh, let's just change the date and change the location of death. That means somebody had to go in there and do that. They had to go change that, republish this death notice and say, no, he didn't die in Fort Worth. He died at his residence. So now you got 2 conflicting reports. Okay, here's where it gets interesting, is because his death certificate says he died in Fort Worth, but my neighbor that lived across the street, Marilyn Dlugi, told me twice Mike died in this home. Okay, I believe Mike was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth because the next week the oil show party was starting. Okay, and so I believe that Mike is one of the 4 people that Aaron Packelhofer was talking about. So here's his obituary here. He was married to Sarah Buchanan. She's the one that sold me the house, the widow. Interesting story there. I had already walked away. I'd made an offer. They made a counter offer. I thought it was too much. And then Mike dies. And then my realtor calls me and says, Sarah will drop the price $35,000 if you'll buy it. And I only paid $130,000, so that's a huge amount to drop the price. Of course, I didn't know it was a rigged for crime home. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that. And then later, the ex-wife told me, you were chosen to buy this home. So I suspect somebody, talked to Sarah, or told Sarah to sell me this home and drop that price $35,000. I think Sarah Lawhon might know something, the widow of Mike Lawhon, because of that. Okay. And here's some of his family members. Some of them are kind of important to the story. Susan McGaina's a sister. I talked to her on the phone. She told me about a brother they had here, Brian Tennis. and that he was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. That's interesting because I found a Kansas City Chiefs cap under the cabinet from where I shot, obviously left by the people that poured the concrete after I shot, covering up the murder attempt. Okay, because proof shows I wasn't shot with my gun, and we know where I shot from, and concrete's there, so obviously it was poured, in that 3 days between the two police entries in my home. The first one I was never supposed to know about, and they accidentally got caught on camera. Okay, and so anyways, then he had two sons, so there, there's two boys growing up without a dad. I believe that, as I said, I believe that he was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth to throw off suspicion, and because of the oil show parties. Okay, and then also recently, a Facebook friend, I left her anonymous because these are dangerous criminals, but she told me that she knows a guy that was a friend of Mike Lawhon, and he said Mike would always talk about how he felt like people were in this house, how he knew people were in this house. So Mike was telling people that people were breaking this house before I even moved here. Okay, these crimes were going on long before I moved here. Okay, I want to show you this one here. Okay, when I first looked at the house on October 1st, 2008, with my realtor, Janine Pruitt, that's her, I was just snapping pictures with a camera as I walked through. And I happened to get this picture, and that's the back door. Actually, where she's standing is right where I was ambushed and shot. Okay, I want to show you, there's the doorknob. What's important is on the 28th of the month, okay, of October 28th, I met the home inspector here, Perkins Brazier, and we found a hole in the door where that doorknob was at on the 1st. So within this month of October 2008, there's absolute proof that back door was kicked in. That's the back door to the garage. And I'm suspecting that happened on the night that Mike died. That they kicked in the door and they held him down, injected him, and then took him to Fort Worth. That's what I'm guessing. What we know is there was a brute force home invasion during that month, and this is the proof. Because this is a timestamp picture showing the doorknobs there. Here's the inspection report showing it's gone 28 days later. Okay. Here, I want to show you this, okay. First of all, it's going where Mike died, his residence. What I showed you a minute ago. This is the ME, medical examiner's report, okay, showing it died in Fort Worth. This was this mom's house, okay. It was a townhouse in Fort Worth. And it shows acute propoxyphene intoxication. I believe that's Darvocet or something like that. And and I made this point before that it sounds, because I was told the secret is a group of doctors killing people for profit. I've wondered if the doctors had something to do with Mike Lawhon dying of Darvocet overdose, which seems very odd, and especially looking at this other. So that's one of my suspects, is this group of doctors ex-wife told me about, that was killing people for profit. I was looking at the timing, how long does it take, because I was looking at the death certificates, because, he was ruled that he died in Fort Worth, but the neighbor said he died here, and that's what the Odessa American said on their second revised death notice, right? And so I'm like going, well, it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to fly, takes about 4.5 hours to drive, and so I'm trying to figure out what time did he really die at, basically, because I figured he was murdered here, carried there, and that was because they wanted to sell the home, and the next week they were having an oil show party, and they needed the backyard, and this home, to facilitate that. This is part of the reason I think same people shot me are the ones that killed Mike. Okay, this is just a Facebook post. What I did, I got a video called "Rigging the Garage Door for Burglary." It's real interesting if you see it. I mean, it's fascinating how that garage door is rigged. And I said in this video that it, I found it and fixed it, but that would allow a person from the outside to get in the garage door in about 10 seconds, because this garage door was rigged. And I suspect that was used on the night Mike Lawhon was died, because they had rigged that door so they could get that door open real quick, and then they come in that garage door, that back door, and kicked in that door. He had the door locked, and they kicked that in, then they held him down. And so I think this guy commented, William D. Okay, I don't know who that is, and probably the same guy that creates one YouTube profile after another and keeps putting rude comments. But he died of a drug overdose in a garage in a different house in a different city from the house you purchased from the widow. That was like filled with information. At this time, I'm like, he died in the garage at his mom's house. I didn't know that. And so evidently William D. happens to have information on Mike's death, and and it sounds like he's trying to cover it up. And so I thought that was a clue. This one is another old Facebook post I got from Robert Lee. He told me he owned the Harley Davidson dealership here, and he asked me, he said, did a real estate person not mention someone died or was killed in the house? And so I got a print screen of it because this guy knew that Mike Lawhon died in my house too, or somebody did, right? Another print screen. This is Stephanie Black Stevenson here. This was kind of interesting. What's your physical address? I drove down the alley last night. I promise you I won't say a word. My neighbor across the street told me her friend bought that house after the murder with her autistic son and only lived there for 5 months and then sold it to you. Obviously that was Sarah Lawhon. She said that everything you're saying is a fact and that the neighbors wouldn't even speak to her about all the stuff she was telling them. This is scary stuff, okay? And so, I thought that one was interesting. Mike Lawhon died at his mom's house, and she died in 2016. And that's another thing I see on over and over and over, all these people that die. But interesting here, she used to work in Midland, okay? She worked at the Petroleum Club, the Plaza Club, the Green Tree Country Club in Midland, okay? And then she's working at the Colonial Club in Fort Worth, I guess, when she died, okay? And so obviously she knows a lot of people here. Susan Tennis, okay? Mike Lawhon's mom, okay? And interestingly, the Plaza Club, I think, was owned by Clayton Williams. It was a private club. He was the oil field billionaire, famous, that ran for governor of Texas. And one of his executives, Aaron Gobble, was the vice president of Tabor Construction, the company that built these homes in this cul-de-sac. And Aaron Gobble, who worked for Clayton, just happened to die on his plane. Okay, what I'm showing you here is under the cabinet from where I shot. And we know where I shot from. I mean, because we know where the entrance wound is, the exit wound. So we know where the gun was, the direction of shot, where the gun was located that shot me, And it come from this under this cabinet. Well, obviously, that was the hidden trapdoor, now removed trapdoor that the ex-wife had already told me about. That's and so it was rigged. Nobody would ever suspect that. This, you can see here, when I first bought this home and this cabinet, the door is gone, this kickboard was gone. I actually added this little board after I shot, and the shells are gone. It was never put together right. It's because it was an underground entrance right here is what it was. And then after I survived the murder attempt, then they poured concrete. I suspect Matt Davis knows about that. Sergeant Matt Davis, he's the one that had the keys to my house during that time period. Okay. Here we go. Somebody found this online. Susan Tennis. This is the mother of Mike Lawhon. Let's go Chiefs. See, the thing is, I found a Kansas City Chiefs cap under that cabinet when I pulled it out after I'd survived the murder attempt. Okay. And then Susan Magana, the sister of Mike Lawhon, calls me and she just tells me that they had a brother here in Midland that was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. She had seen this cap that I'd found under there and she was letting me know that. That seems like a clue, right? I mean, don't y'all think that Susan Magana is giving me a clue, that her their half brother that lives here in Midland, Brian Tennis, is a big Kansas City fan, and I find a Kansas City Chiefs cap under the cabinet from where I'm shot. It was obviously left there after I was shot, and then here Susan Tennis is a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, the mother. Barbara Pickering, that was another one of the siblings, and this is an extremely rude person right here, and so all of a sudden, you need to get help. Well, red flags go up right there, because I'm the victim of a murder attempt, right? And so I think Barbara Pickering knows something about this home rig and these multiple murders. And I think law enforcement should be talking to her to find out what she knows, and if she's ever been down there to these $1 million underground homes where they're hosting oil show parties and she hasn't reported that, then arrest her, and here's a rude comment. You need to get some help. Leave my family alone. I'm the sister of Mike and the daughter of Susan. Leave this information. It's not related. They are deceased. No conspiracy. You're causing pain, dishonor, etc., etc., etc. Okay. And here, no, I mean psychiatric help. Screenshot that too, And well, let me tell you what. Proof I wasn't shot with my gun. Proof of homeowners all over Midland, Odessa, reporting people in the attic, and then multiple people documented saying underground homes and tunnels here, including a recent candidate for sheriff. Makes it real clear this story is crazy, but I ain't. Okay, Barbara Pickering, the sister of Mike Lawhon. I think she knows something. Here's Brian Tennis. I talked to him. Remember, his sister, Sue McGaina, is the one that told me that he was a big Kansas City Chiefs fan. I took it as a clue, right? And so here I'm writing here about telling him the story about we're creating a documentary on you as another story. Here's where Brian writes me, okay? And he says, that's nowhere near the truth. I'm sorry all this happened to you, but my brother was attending drug rehab in Fort Worth. After he finished, he was staying with my mother. In less than 2 weeks, he relapsed and fueled of an overdose, overdose of propoxyphene intoxication. What? Susan does not know what she's talking about, okay? So he called Susan, his sister, a liar, okay? My brother choked his ex-wife, okay, with a rifle, there's a gun, and then had to be talked down by me. So there was a confrontation between Brian Tennis and Mike Lawhon. He's telling me that from committing suicide. He was arrested after that. He never fired a weapon in this home, okay? And he was arrested. And see, I was told by my realtor, Janine Pruitt, when I first looked at this house, he was incarcerated for drugs. And, I had no reason to doubt that until I was put in the back of a seat of a police car, which had a baggie of marijuana laying in the seat, and told I better not call the police again. And that was 5 weeks before I was ambushed and shot, And so then, and then I'm told, we're creating a document trail on you. And I'm thinking, they created a document trail on Mike Lawhon. They framed him for drugs, arrested him, and then they killed him, and they go, look, oh yeah, he's a drug user, and that, I was like, I wrap that one up, cover that murder up. That's what I'm thinking, Here, the City of Midland public records request. This is where I got the police report from the night of the murder attempt 7 years after the fact. Okay, but I also asked for all the records for this home before I moved here because I wanted to know, if there was calls, who was arrested, when Mike Lawhon was arrested. I want to know if there was calls for reporting people in the attic before I got here, and the City of Midland denied my request. I appealed that to the Texas Attorney General Paxton, and he upheld them, and so I was never allowed to see the police records for my home before I moved here. I think that's a clue in itself, and that's kind of crap, I've been under to cover up these, multiple murders. This one here, it could be nothing, or maybe it is something, but I was Googling Lawhon, underground, all this, and I run across this news story in the Fort Worth paper that says exotic ranch hid theft ring, officials say. And it was in Fort Worth, okay, and it was posted in 98, okay, and at Tolar, Texas, from behind the closed gate of the Lawhon, that's how come I found it, exotic ranch, officials say the tentacles of a theft ring reached out to 5 states, to Costa Rica, and even to deceased witnesses in the Whitewater investigation. That was the Clinton investigation, right? Now there are only metal barns, some emus, an occasional donkey, and a well-kept patch of land just outside Tolar. But this year, authorities discovered a huge collection of stolen vehicles, pickups, front-end loaders, and earth-moving machines on the property. The Department of Public Safety said it was the most expensive collection of stolen vehicles it has uncovered. Since January, when the ranch's owner, Charles W. Lawhon, 48, was accused of stealing a Johnson County earth mover, authorities had found more than 120 stolen vehicles valued at more than $3 million. They were scattered across Arkansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, Minnesota, and North Dakota, and the DPS says that some vehicles may have been shipped to Costa Rica. Inside Lawhon's bar, investigators found such gee whiz touches as movable walls and vehicles behind hay bales. Authorities say they believe that the ring had drivers who moved vehicles and heavy equipment between Texas and other states, And so I'm going, wow, I wonder if this guy's related to Mike Lawhon, because the secluded truck unloading lane directly behind this house, would be perfect for that kind of stuff, but I've never got any word on that. I posted this, and I believe that I think the Florida Telegram deleted that news article, but I already had it print screened, and so possibly that is a clue, especially if they are related, if that Lawhons are related. And see, that was up in Fort Worth, and that's where one of the places that Mike was said to die. Here's the second guy that I've wondered might have died in this house. Rene Escobar Sanchez. He's actually still missing. He's a still missing man. And the date he went missing was July 12, 2008. Okay. Mike died October 12th, 2008. 3 months later to the day. Okay. And so Rene Escobar is still missing from Odessa. Okay. And remember, the neighbor had told me somebody else died here before Mike did. So I'm wondering if it wasn't Rene Escobar Sanchez. Plus I was finding, these cut up, half buried, cut up clothes here. This death smell on the west side of my lawn. I got a video on that, about Rene Escobar Sanchez. Here, when I'm showing you on February 5th, 2013, I wrote the Odessa American. Okay. Here's the reporter, and this tip, and I'm telling him this tip that's over here was submitted to Odessa Crime Stoppers, and I'm telling them I transferred here. I noticed this death smell on the west side of my yard 4 years ago, prior to figuring out this home was being broken into repeatedly, being shot from a hidden basement. I have overwhelming proof that I was shot from a cabinet in my utility room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And just a few days later, they arrest a guy for Rene's murder, confessed after 5 years. They pulled him over for a broken headlight and he confessed to murder or whatever. And so that was just odd, and so, but anyway, I wrote the Odessa American and told them that I had sent this Crime Stoppers tip for Rene Escobar Sanchez, still missing. Okay. I never got any reply from anybody, and I think Crime Stoppers sent me a reply once and told me to contact Midland Police, but I wasn't contacting the secret police, that's dangerous. They arrested this guy, okay, man charged with murder connection. Look at him smiling, I made a big point of that. Jesus, whatever, he looked like he won the lottery, and some people have wondered if he wasn't bribed to confess, It's going, here, you confess to his murder. So they did this big search off of Moss Road over in Odessa, right where he supposedly put the body, and they never found the body. Rene Escobar Sanchez is still missing. This guy confessed, and there was never no body, and he's got the huge grin on his face. Like I said, they pulled him over for a broken tail light. He confesses to murder 5 years later with a huge smile on his face. And I'm thinking, he was bribed. They bribed him. That's what happened. And, they probably told him, oh, you won't go to jail, because we're never going to find the body. But he did go to jail, but I wonder if he didn't get paid for it, I don't know if he's out or not. I hadn't looked. Okay, and here's the next one, of course. This is the homicide of the young girl. This is a current Midland Crime Stoppers right now, okay? And this is what I've been contacting Sheriff Connor about and the Texas Rangers, because I believe this, this is the girl that Angie told me was murdered at the 2010 oil show party, okay? Unidentified human remains discovered outside of Midland, 10 miles outside of Midland. Remains were a female, white or Hispanic, 14 to 21 years old. Homicide is suspected, okay? And so that's a current, and so if you know about the underground homes here in Midland, Texas, then you should report that, because I believe that has connection to that capital murder right there of that little girl. Okay, here is a print screen from Jessica Lee Hadley. Okay, and I'm telling her about the young girl Angie told me about murder at the oil show party, and Jessica tells me, says, I've been to 2,000 oil shows, and I tell you what, there's more than just that one that was murdered or raped, because she didn't do whatever they wanted to do. And then she goes on and talks about Joe Commander, I think, and a lot of other stuff, but which I'm going to skip that part, but. It's not the only other person that I've been told that's confirmed these oil shows, and then what's going on there, raping and murdering children, Here's where after, years of evidence gathering, here's what I believe was happening, based on the evidence. The people that were at the oil show parties were parking in this parking lot in front of the Midland Home Depot store, okay? And there's a reason. I think I was telling a clerk in that store one day my story, and she just blurts out, if you happen to see a lot of cars in the parking lot late at night, it's because we're stalking. Well, I hadn't seen it, and I hadn't even thought about it, but then I thought, that's a clue. She gave me a clue. And so an oil show party, International Permian Basin Oil Show Party, would have a lot of people. They need a lot of parking. They need an excuse, Oh, it's because we're stalking, okay? And I believe they're going underground somewhere around there in the store, out of the store, and then here. And this didn't show it real well, but you could see the grounds cut behind Home Depot. That's what I showed Homeland Security in July 2019, that, hey, I believe this is where the tunnel's going from this building going directly to my home right here, and I'm ambushed and shot by somebody under my home right there in 2012. Mike Lawhon died here, according to Odessa American and the neighbor, And in my backyard, it looks like one of the 4 underground homes. I was told there's 4 3-bedroom underground homes. I was told there was one a half block away. I've wondered if it's not in this empty lot right here, because that's a half block away. It has a water well. The home next to it has a mortar problem like my home, etc. Okay. I want to show you this. And I show this often. You go to Google Maps, maps.google.com, put in my address, and you look in my backyard, okay? Here, and that's my home. That's where I was ambushed and shot. And you can see on the map screen that there's a large facility bunker basement in my backyard, okay? It looks like a building. But you switch over to the satellite screen, and it's not there. And you drive down the alley, and it's not there. But it's there on the map screen. Google Maps is showing a large facility in my backyard that can't be seen from above ground. I believe that is one of the 4 underground homes I was told about, where Joe Lozano, Sheriff Candidate Joe Lozano, said Sheriff Painter was hanging out, right, on a recorded phone call where the oil show parties were going, where that little girl was murdered at that Angie told me about. I believe that's it right there in my backyard. There's one of the 4 homes. Maybe another one's the one I showed you, And then there's so much evidence on that. That's why I always said, Rhonda Denman Rogers said, but another's a half block away. Layla O'Brien said she worked on this project. They had a budget of $7.35 million. Finished 1987. She believed the Bushes were involved in that. I just did a video on that, the Bush tunnels, and talking about that. And so, and then here, after I showed Homeland Security, I was back there with Homeland Security behind the Home Depot store, between Home Depot and my home, where I believe the tunnel was at. This shows you a better picture of it. You can see where the ground's cut going, aimed directly at my house, right? Well, that's what I was showing them, and somebody under my home shot me. And then, they kept saying, well, if it's a murder, it has nothing to do with us, and I contact the FBI. And you go, the FBI, you need to contact the sheriff, and it ain't nobody's problem. You got a little girl dead, right? And so here, that's what I'm showing. And here, but 2 weeks later, the ground's dug up and concrete's being poured, About a couple of weeks after I got this video of them pouring concrete where I showed them the human trafficking murder tunnel was at, U.S. Congressman Mike Conaway announces his retirement. Come to find out, his brother-in-law used to live across the street from my house, okay? And then 3 months later, Secretary of Homeland resigns. 6 days after that, Secretary of Energy, Rick Perry, resigns. Secretary of Energy would probably know people that were oil show parties, big multi-billion-dollar oil companies, right? Having $1 million underground homes where they're having oil show parties. And so it's been suspected that's why Kevin McLeenan and Rick Perry resigned, was because they got caught pouring concrete to cover up capital murders, And so anyways, that still leaves, that's only 3, right? And Aaron Peckelhofer said there was 4. And so who knows who the last one is? Aaron does, I think. And then obviously I was supposed to be the 5th. They loaded their guns, drove from their home to my home, sneaked in, cut my phone lines. They bought special bullet, right? Glazer safety slug in a 45, set my burglar alarms off in the attic. They were herding me to walk by where they could get a kill shot. And then as soon as I did, they pulled the trigger. They listened to me scream, waited for me to die, right? That was the plan. And then God saved my life and I crawled out. I give him all the praise and glory. I thought y'all would find that interesting. Talk to you later. Bye.